So you've taken down the weaklings of the minor circuit and climbed your way up through the big leagues. Now, only one man lies between you and the major circuit belt. And that man?
Aha! Ole!
Is Don Flamenco. He's a bullfighter, he's a romantic, he has a rose in his mouth, his shorts are in the colours of the Spanish flag, his name is Don Flamenco for crying out loud. The point I'm trying to make here is that, as is the case with pretty much all of the characters in this game, this dude is basically every stereotype from his country rolled into one. And ayo, hold up, did he just launch a bull into the sky with his uppercut? Yeah, this guy ain't no joke. When you step into the ring with him, however, you'll find that his fighting style almost perfectly replicates that of a bullfighter. You see, Don is very different from any other opponent you've had to face thus far. Most characters in Punch-Out come out of the gate swinging, immediately bombarding you with attack after attack. Flamenco, however, isn't as rash as those guys. He just stands there, goading you on like a toreador to a bull, letting you make the first move. When you inevitably throw out a jab, he dodges out of the way with ease and hits you with his classic uppercut. You need to watch your timing as well. Sometimes he shouts Toro and hits you instantly, while other times he'll delay it slightly, saying Carmen mi amor in the wind-up. It's implied that the Carmen he's referring to here is his girlfriend at the time, or in other words, the woman that we see him giving a rose to in the intro. Aw, they seem to have such a happy and healthy relationship. Don clearly feels passionate about his love for her too. I hope nothing bad happens between them anytime soon. That aside, what Don is doing here is dodging your punches and counter-attacking when he sees a chance. Wait, hold on. Doesn't that sound familiar to you guys? It's the exact same tactic that you've been using to get this far. He's giving Little Mac a taste of his own medicine. This presents a unique challenge for you to overcome. You need to figure out how to outdance the flamenco. Fall for his taunts and you'll play right into his hands, letting him knock your lights out in style.
Adios.
The way you win this one is by countering Don Flamenco's counter-attacks. Simply dodge his uppercuts, duck his hooks, and then wail in on him like you would with any other character. Huh, guess he's a lot less complex to overcome than he looks. But even when you think you've got him all sussed out, it's not quite over just yet. The Don still has one last trick up his sleeve, his signature Rose Flurry. In the wind-up to this move, he'll perform a series of claps while counting uno, dos, tres, and then unleash a series of 3 consecutive hooks. They are lethal to get hit by, so you need to make sure that you evade all of them. Do this successfully, and Don Flamenco resigns to his fate, forfeiting a star to you, allowing you to hit back at him with your own uppercut. This whole match is a fun back and forth, and it's one of the most satisfying fights in the game for that reason. Part of what makes this the case is that, unlike characters like Soda Popinski, who takes what looks to be some kind of performance-enhancing drugs, or Aaron Ryan, who, let's just say, has his fair share of rule infractions, Don Flamenco is relatively tame. Sure, he does break a few regulations for minor things like spraying himself with perfume and throwing the bottle into the crowd, but none of it is really on the same scale as headbutting the opponent or bringing a weapon into the fight. Coming off the back of a straight-up genie, it feels like a return to a much more grounded style of boxing, right before you move on to the completely unhinged world circuit. He's a relatively respectable character as well, saying things like bien hecho and bien visto when he dodges hooks, which roughly translates to well done and you got me, respectively. A lot of people think he's being sarcastic here, but I don't know, I've always interpreted Don Flamenco as someone who's very competitive, taunting Mac when he's down, but giving credit where it's due when he dodges. Granted, he's a bit of a showboat, but throughout the match he always remains cool, calm and collected. So it turns out that this whole time, our amigo Don Flamenco was concealing his receding hairline underneath the toupee, and if you look closely, you might notice that he is not too happy about his secret being revealed to the world. The once composed Spaniard is now seeing red, and his ordinarily defensive approach gets thrown out of the window. You could say that old Don goes from bullfighter to bull in a china shop with how aggressive his onslaught becomes from this point on. He throws out a brand new uppercut and doesn't let up until he sees your face on the mat. When he's in this state, even if you manage to dodge his barrage of punches, he barely lets you get any hits in, only rarely getting stunned. This is the hardest that the match ever gets. I guess Don Flamenco really rose to the occasion after his toupee got knocked off. Speaking of which, in between rounds, Doc Lewis hits you with this banger of a one-liner.
Toupee or not toupee? That is the question.
Honestly, who needs Shakespeare when you have Doc Lewis, bro? And while we're talking about the round intermissions, can I just ask, what does Doc mean by this quote, and how is it in any way relevant to the fight?
What's your favorite flower, son? Mine's chocolate.
It's just, I don't know, man, at this point I've stopped questioning it. Regardless, everything we've seen thus far makes Don Flamenco look like quite the formidable opponent. You'll be fighting tooth and nail with him, and when you do eventually best him for the first time, it'll likely be after a long, difficult war of attrition. You won't win by mindlessly swinging, but instead by beating Flamenco at his own game. However, if you were one of the people who played Mike Tyson's Punch-Out on the NES, you'll remember that there was a pretty simple trick to beating this guy with relative ease. All you had to do was alternate between your left and right jabs after dodging one of his attacks, and he would be rendered completely helpless, unable to escape from this eternal stun lock. If you try to use the exact same technique in Punch-Out Wii, it doesn't end up working, but this is where you need to get creative. If you experiment a little bit, you'll notice that after Don's stun animation is over, if you delay your timing, then you're actually able to get a couple more hits in. Not very many, but still worth noting, right? However, if you try alternating between a left jab and a right body blow, you'll find that much like in his debut appearance, you found a one-way ticket to victory. You can annihilate Don Flamenco in one of the quickest, most embarrassing defeats in WVBA history. After this, things started to go downhill for the former Major Circuit champion. After all, he hadn't just lost his belt, as along with it, he also lost his pride. Being defeated by Little Mac of all people was shameful, especially for a ladies' man like him. All the female attention he was getting before had now vanished, and the fight was so humiliating that even his amour, Carmen, presumably left him after the fact. But do you know who was starting to get more popular with the ladies? Yeah. And to say Don Flamenco took this personally would be an understatement. For want of a better phrase, the man has a straight up emo phase. Instead of repping his home country with a red and yellow garb, he now sports all black shorts and gloves with eyeliner and a black rose to match. And black roses tend to be symbolic of sorrow and despair, so it's implied that he's probably mourning his now broken relationship with his once beloved Carmen. He seems to blame Little Mac for everything, harboring a strong resentment towards him and training like never before to put him in his place. This definitely shines through in his rematch, as his punches do significantly more damage than they did before. Combine this with a bunch of new attacks to mix things up, and Don Flamenco feels like a force in the ring. He even starts stringing together certain moves, like how after he dodges Toro uppercut, he sometimes mixes in an ole hook immediately after to catch you off guard. He also has this brand new backhand punch, which is an illegal move, but honestly, if I were the ref I'd let it slide, purely because it's one of the coolest looking attacks in the game. Then there's his Rose Flurry. In contender mode, he always did 3 hooks from the right, so it was a relatively predictable move to dodge. However, in title defense, he makes things a lot trickier to play around. The first time he uses it, you'll notice that this time, before he lets loose, he claps to both his right and left sides. And as you might have guessed, the direction that he claps in dictates which way he'll throw out his hooks. But at the end of the day, it's just 3 hooks. It can't be that much harder to dodge than before, right? Wrong. As you get into the later stages of the fight, instead of merely counting to 3, Don Flamenco will rapidly count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's right, 5 attacks. This means that you have to pay close attention to his claps, or else you'll risk dodging the wrong way and taking a hook to the face. The damage output is even crazier this time around, and it adds a new element of memorization to the battle. With all these fancy new techniques, it is very easy to lose this rematch, and when you do, Don's Black Rose is restored to its former red coloration. I guess this is a metaphor for all his sorrow and despair being wiped away and his broken relationship being mended. I kinda feel happy for him in all honesty, but all good things must come to an end. You might think that you can end this one quickly by abusing the same infinite combo that you used in contender mode, but if you try this, you'll find that Don Flamenco's wizened up, and your old tricks won't work on him anymore. At least that's how things look at first. Sure, the previous infinite doesn't work anymore, but what's to say that a brand new one won't? Well, as it turns out, if you do 2 delayed jabs followed by a delayed hook and repeat, you can completely demolish him just like before. It's that simple. Despite this exploit, the fights against Don Flamenco are among the most entertaining in the game, and serve as a fantastic barrier to entry to the world circuit. As a character, he is packed with personality, and no other fighter can quite match his flamboyant style. Now, all that remains for me to say is this: adios, Don Flamenco. Thanks for tuning in, I really appreciate you making it this far. I think Don Flamenco is one of the coolest characters in the series, and they definitely did him justice in Punch-Out Wii. If you enjoyed this video, I also made one on Von Kaiser a while back, so go ahead and check that one out if you want some more.